Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is my podcast, Up in the Clouds. Hello everyone. I hope you guys have been doing wonderfully. I hope everybody's been doing really well. Sorry about this little hiatus that I needed to take. Long story short, I don't do well with heartbreak. So I know nobody really does well with heartbreak, but I specifically just do not handle being hurt very well. I kind of really like, I don't know if it's like what it is, but it just kind of like shatters my whole life. Like when I'm hurt or when I'm heartbroken or when I'm just dealing with things related to whatever. And obviously it was not too long ago that I got out of a very intense, not very healthy relationship, and I thought I was ready to move on and talk to other people, and I think I was, but I wasn't ready for hurt, and I didn't expect it, and I think I wasn't ready to get my heart broken again, to say the least. And I wasn't ready for this pain. And I just wasn't, I feel like it's almost worse when you're not expecting it. Like when you're talking to somebody that's kind of like a shitty person, you're like, oh God, this person's gonna hurt me. But it's like when you're not expecting to get hurt by somebody, I feel like and you're it's just almost worse. And I feel like I just wasn't thinking that was what was gonna happen from the situation. And it just ended up being really bad. And I ended up just being shattered. And I've just been kind of recovering and not doing very well, TBH, but it's I'm just trying, I'm trying my best, and I'm trying to kind of build myself up again, and I'm kind of forcing myself to do this just to kind of get back to some normalcy and kind of get back into just getting my life back together, because I feel like I just kind of let my life just kind of pass me by, when I'm going through things and I'm kind of feeling really hurt and sad, and I just really get into a really bad funk, and it's just so hard to get out of, and it's but nevertheless, we are trying to be back. We are trying to be better. We're trying to recover and just kind of moving on from okay, maybe I'm not ready to if you're not ready to be hurt, maybe you're not ready for anything, it's stepping away from anything related to any sort of anything for a long time, because it ruins my life, and I just need to know that before, so I don't like talking to people, so I don't like letting people in my life, I don't like this feeling, I don't like any of it, so it's I just spacing myself away from everything and just kind of focusing really, really heavily on me, myself, and I, and just not letting anyone into my life for the time being and for the near future, because I just need to, I can't anymore. I can't deal with this. It's just too much. But let's get into the episode, because I don't really want to I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm trying to move forward with things. So today's episode, we are talking about breaking generational curses. So what is a generational curse? It is a reoccurring pattern of negative behaviors, traumas, or hardships that are passed down family lineage. So basically, when you're trying to decide, I want to break the generational curse, what is, you're not allowing the cycles to keep repeating. The biggest quote that I have that I really feel relates so much to this is suffer in a loop or surrender to change. So you're going to keep, not only you, but your family is going to keep suffering in a loop unless somebody decides to surrender to change, and somebody decides to break the cycle. Somebody decides to step away from the family patterns, What's a good example of that? Being in no contact with a biological parent. You're cutting a negative cycle by cutting out negativity that that somebody brings into your life. So deciding that you don't care about them being your parent, you don't care about them being a family member, what you care about is how they're treating you and how they make you feel. You're cutting that out. So technically, just by that step, you are breaking a generational curse of trauma, because you are cutting out trauma at the root. you know? What's another good example is I'll kind of talk about something very personal, that what I decided to break generational curse is a promise I made to myself surrounding marriage and kids, that I would not get married unless I knew 1000% that was my person, because divorce is a common pattern in both sides of my family, my dad's side and my mom's side. And seeing divorce happen over and over and over again, I made that promise to myself before I even knew about any of this type of stuff, you know? But obviously finding out about this stuff kind of like makes you even more be like, I want to cut the cycle by either not getting married and or waiting until I'm way older and knowing that that's my person and knowing that is not going to end in divorce, right? Like, I'm not just getting married for the sake of getting married. I'm not just getting married because I'm 32 and I think I'm running out of time. I'm not just getting married to the first person that just you know what I'm saying? Like, breaking a generational pattern of divorce that's on both sides of my family by putting myself in, like, I'm not putting myself in a box. I'm not forcing myself to be in something, and just I don't want to get married unless I know for sure that we will not get divorced, which sounds crazy to say because nobody ever wants to get divorced, but sometimes people put themselves in like, oh, I'm 30 and I'm not married, or I'm 30 and I don't have kids. No, I don't give a fuck about how old I am. I would rather wait until I was 52 to get married for the first time, knowing that that's my person for the rest of my life. And also about the same thing revolving around kids. I personally wouldn't have promised myself that I would never have kids unless I was married to that person. And then part two, that if I was married to that person, I would not have any, I would not have kids with anybody that I was married to if I did not think we were going to be together forever. So, there's a double-edged sword to it. So, it's obviously I wouldn't marry that person if I didn't think it would be forever. But on top of it, I'm not going to have kids with somebody that I don't think is going to last forever, because I don't ever want to put my kids through that. I don't ever want to put my kids through divorce or any of that. And that I would not have kids with anybody that would be absent, working too much, because I grew up with parents that were never really there for me, right? So I don't want an absent partner or have kids with somebody that I couldn't, oh my God. I'm breaking out in the vibes. Okay. Would not have kids with anyone that wouldn't be there for me and be there for the kids, because I grew up with my parents never being around. I grew up with babysitters, kind of traumatic experience with those babysitters. I remember one babysitter, she used to beat us with wooden spoons. Another babysitter, forced us to eat foods that we didn't like. And I remember being throwing up one time on her countertop, whatever, and then or just being hungry because we couldn't eat her. She's like, well, if you're not gonna eat this food, you're not gonna eat it all. And just this one babysitter, she literally would sleep until noon, and me and my brother would be little kids, so you wake up early and you're starving, and it's whatever, just traumatic experience with babysitters. And that I would just never want to ever put my kids with babysitters, just after what I experienced growing up. I never want parents that weren't there. As parents couldn't be there for my kids. I just feel the parents weren't there for a lot of stuff. And I just promised myself that I would never, if I would have kids, if I would get married, I would never not be there. I would never not, and I would never want my partner to not be there either. So I'd never want a partner that's working all the time or working so much or just absent, just an absent partner. I promised myself that. And that's breaking a generational curse because of what I experienced, not repeating the cycle. So a lot of times when people grow up in really traumatic situations, or just it doesn't even have to be that traumatic, just in negative situations, a lot of the times they repeat the cycle by doing exactly what their parents did to their future children. And when you're just, that's how generational curses start. That's how generational trauma starts, And so as a person who's deciding to look in the mirror and say, I'm not going to repeat the cycle, I'm not going to let what happened to me happen to someone else in the future. By doing that, you are cutting that, you're breaking that generational curse, that generational cycle, that generational trauma. Because a lot of people, it's habitual, it's subconscious. A lot of times you follow suit of what happened to us, right? But choosing to be outside of the, the conscious mind or your subconscious mind, and consciously choosing to want different for yourself in the future, and like maybe your future children or your future whatever, just future lineage of life. Yeah, and I also said that if I had kids, I would not, if married, would not have kids someone I didn't see forever with. So that's also kind of, just not having kids just to have kids, or to have children just to, oh, you better have children, you're running out, like, whatever. Knowing you want to be the opposite of what you experienced growing up instead of repeating the cycles, As I mentioned earlier, the repeating themes, like with my family, divorce. What's another good example? Me stopping drinking. That's a good way of breaking a sort of generational, like, alcoholism, like in your family, or just like, just doing things outside of choosing better for yourself, for your future, for your family, for you. I got really fucking cold and kind of almost like talk myself out of doing this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to push through, and I'm going to finish this, and I'm going to keep going and keep flowing, and just, So perfect. Another good example of breaking a generational curse is like stopping drinking. So, alcohol, I'm from the Midwest, so it's like not even necessarily like every person in my family is an alcoholic, right? But it's like, it's just a very common thing in the Midwest for people to overdrink, overindulge in whatever. And having family members who are alcoholics who don't necessarily know that they're alcoholics, because it's so normalized in Midwest culture, it's like breaking a generational curse by stopping drinking even, or breaking generational trauma, because like, I'm not going to lie, there were a lot of traumatic things for me that had to do with people in my family who were alcoholics, and things that would happen when they would drink, and their, what they would do, what they would say, and that brings trauma, that brings hurt, that brings pain. And to cut, when I started to get really bad at drinking, and I was drinking every single day, and I could feel it becoming a problem, I could feel it being something that was turning very negative really fast. Like, it was fun, and it was a party, and I was a life party, and it was fun until it was not, right? And to kind of decide, oh my God, I'm seeing traits of the family member in my family who was an alcoholic, and what they would do when they were when they would get too drunk, they'd get to the certain point, and then they would just turn into someone they were not. They would turn into the worst version of themselves. They would say horrible things. And so when I was starting to see traits of that in myself, and when I would be drinking, and I would start seeing myself turning into that person, that's when I was like, I'm done. I hate this. I do not ever want to be that person. I love that person with everything, but I don't want that to continue. I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for my future life. I don't want that for my future partner, because like, that person puts their partner through it. And honestly, like, kudos to their partner that they deal with it, and they're still there no matter, like, through all the things that this person has said to them while they're fucked up, And I just was like, I don't want to be that person, and I could see that I was seeing those traits from that person come out, because it's just in our family, it's in our bloodline, you kind of. But taking that step to break that generational likeness of, alcoholism and just negativity around something that's so normalized, that was like breaking a chain, a really big chain, right? And like, even going against a lot of my family, because they kind of they're very accepting now, but I feel like at first it was like, oh, well, how long are you doing this for? Like, oh, come on, like, can you just have one? Like, oh, you're still doing that? Like, very just like weird comments. And I get it, like, I don't hold anything towards them, because it's just like the culture of the Midwest, and it's just how it is there. And it's alcoholism is so normalized in the Midwest. Like, being out here and being out west, like, I don't get that, like, I don't want to say backlash, because that's not the right word, but I don't get that, like, it is kind of like, I don't get that, like, questioning of, why aren't you drinking? How long are you drinking? Why can't you just have one? Well, how long are you going to do this for? That doesn't exist. Like, I don't receive that as much being out west than I did in the Midwest. Like, people as, oh, I don't drink. Okay, that's it. That's where it stops. It doesn't go into, I need to explain myself. It doesn't go into, I need to defend myself. It doesn't need to, me having to do a fucking speech at a family event. Listen up, everyone. This is going to be until further notice, you know, like having to like over explain myself. It does not happen, you know. And like, is it because that is a, you know, that's so normalized in my family and the culture of the Midwest? There's a lot of factors, right? But choosing better for myself and my future and potentially future partner, potentially future kids, if that even happens, I don't know at this point. At this point, I'm kind of like over men in general. So I feel like right now I'm like thinking about marriage is like not even like, I'm like, it's not even a thing because it's just not even gonna happen. But regardless, no, that's just crazy to say. I'm like, it's obviously one day I will find my person and one day everything will be great and all this pain will be for a reason. I know that. I believe that with my full and true heart. I believe I'm so the embodiment of love that there's just no way that it's just not, there's not someone out there that is going to give all the love that I gave that was unreturned to me. That one day I will find someone that will return all of that love that I gave and extra. You know, I really do believe that, and I really hold on to that hope. No matter how sad, no matter how heartbroken, no matter how shattered I am, I do always believe that one day all of this pain will have been for something. And maybe that in itself is breaking a generational curse. You know, there's a lot of independent women in my family who might, you know, never remarried or never got married in general, you know, and it's like, no shit, like that's not a curse, but I'm just saying, like, to just believe that there is something, you know, there's someone for me and all this pain is all lessons and everything is a lesson. Every heartbreak, every hurt, every friend breakup, anything, any falling out, rejection is always redirection. And I know that what's, you know, so I sound negative, but I don't mean to be. One day I will get married and it will be beautiful and everything will be great. And if I don't end up being married, then it's like, then I never found them in this lifetime, you know, and it was not meant for this life. And that's just what it is. But now knowing I'm not pushing myself or like giving myself a timeline. Like I had friends who were like, well, I need to be married by this age. And they're like marrying people who aren't good people, or like, well, we've been together for this long, like I might as well get married to them even though I'm not happy. And it's like, I promised myself that I would never let that be me. I would never, ever do that. So it's like, if I end up alone, then I would rather end up alone than end up in a situation of a horrible situation or some marriage that someone cheats on me, or a marriage that I'm not happy in, or I'm just stuck forever with somebody else, you know? So it's like, that in itself is breaking a generational curse by choosing myself, you know, and choosing better for myself and my future. And that was something I just promised myself so long ago. And like, then like, obviously the kids of it all, like breaking, like stopping like not having kids after like having traumatic experience, that in itself is breaking a generational curse, a generational trauma, you know, because and especially as somebody who suffers with mental health, that shit is genetic, bro. Like, I don't want to ever give this, what I deal with, to somebody else intentionally. Like, I want to make sure that I'm fully healed, and like, and if it's still a risk, like, I don't know, why would I ever want any human being, especially my own human being, someone, an embodiment of me, to go through these things, you know, to deal with what I deal with on a daily basis, like, you know. And it's like, obviously BPD is from it's like from trauma in childhood, you know, like that shit is not always genetic, but you know, like there's other things that are in my family lineage that could like come, you know. And it's like, I never want, like, anxiety is like, you know, I'm pretty sure that's like genetically passed down. And it's like, I never want any human to ever deal with that. So why would I willingly like put that on and like pass it down? I would rather just cut the fucking cycle, you know. And it's like, maybe that's like my like story, and that's what it is, and that's okay, you know. And I feel like people are so, well, when you meet the right person, you might change your mind, or this and that. And it's like, people try to like change your mind. Why you're so great with kids though? Like, why would you never want kids? It's not the idea of not being good with them or not thinking that I could do it. It's the idea that I don't want all of this to keep going. I don't want any human to experience the things that have been experienced in this timeline and this life and in this family and like in this what's, you know, and it's like I see what my little sisters, and I see the, you know, they're like, I have little half sisters, and I see like they're growing up and they're getting older, and like I see it, you know, and I watched it happen, and it breaks my heart, you know. And I can just choose different, and I just wish it was just more like okay. And it is okay. That's what I'm trying to say, is like systematically, or so not systematically, like socially, it comes off like not okay, and it comes off as you're like, you feel kind of like outside, or, you know, outcasted in a way where you're kind of, because you're, you know, the black sheep, you might say, for choosing different, for being different or whatever, you know. Even just moving the fuck out of the Midwest, you know, when all my family's there, I feel like that in itself is kind of breaking some sort of chain. Like following something, you know, following a dream, or following a feeling, or following, you know, not staying somewhere just because I'm comfortable, or staying somewhere just because my family's there, or staying somewhere that I'm not happy and keep like, oh, I wish I would have did that when I was a kid, or I wish I would have done that when I was your age, or, you know, living with that, I like bring that regret of never being able to, never doing something that you wish you could have done, or, you know, being tied to a partner, like, for example, like, oh, I would love to move there, but like my partner would never, or like, you know, the kids get to a certain age and you don't want to move them, you want to keep them, and, you know, there's a lot of things. And so it's not easy being the chain breaker. It's not easy being the one that kind of decides, I don't want this shit to continue. Surrender to change or suffer in a loop. And not only you, but the rest of your lineage, you know. Pinpoint those things in your family that come, you know, money issues, or alcoholism, drug addictions, divorce, you know, pinpoint those things that are in your family, and you know, abuse, negative, like really bad partners, you know. What is a common reoccurring theme in your lineage, in your family, in your life, that you don't want to continue the cycle anymore? And break that chain. Choose better for yourself. Because why, if we're gonna be here and if we're gonna do this life, there's don't ever put another human being through what you went through, and don't ever put yourself, what happened to your past self. You can choose better for your future and your future self. Don't put a future partner through things that they don't have to be put through because you think you need to stay in a situation because of things and you're unhappy, you know. Choose better. Choose just better. Choose to do better, be better, and choose to change. And don't continue to suffer. You know, that's like that snake. Suffer in a loop, or surrender to change. And this is gonna be a little ease back episode. Obviously, I had a panic attack like mid-episode when I was trying to record this, so I put on this like comfort sweatshirt, which also have a code for comfort on here. These are like mental health brand. It's like a weighted sweatshirt, and honestly, it's not like bogus. Like whenever I'm feeling like super anxious or like really overwhelmed, or like there's a lot of feelings, like I put this on, and like the heaviness of it just really kind of like relaxes my body. And I'm pretty sure I have a code for it down below. It's like CCMONEYY, I'm pretty sure. But it's listed in the description for sure. But yeah, and all their proceeds go to mental health research, so love that. But yeah, I had a panic attack like mid-episode, and I was like, no, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to power through. This is a very important message that I want to talk about today, and also just trying to get myself out of my fucking shell that I've been like hiding in this hole and just dealing with just fucking darkness and sadness and just getting eaten alive by this fucking feeling of just dark. And by coming out of my shell and coming back on here and talking to you guys about it and facing everything, you know, it's helping me heal in a way to get ready back to normalcy and to get into betterness. Because it's like, once I start doing things that help me, like this helps me so much, like coming on here and talking to you guys and just doing this podcast is like such a hobby, and just getting back into some sort of normalcy and getting back into my like things that progressively lift me up positively can help me get the fuck out of this cycle that I'm dealing with, of this heartbreak and this sadness that's just surrounding me, and this just like negativity around everywhere. You know, there's some bad things happened to a friend this weekend, and just something, and to me, and it's just like, I need normalcy again. I need to get back into healthy habits. Like, this is a very healthy habit that I do for you guys, for me, for everything, and just coming back and spreading a message that I just feel so divinely guided to share, you know. And yeah, like I said, panic attack, like mid-episode, like I can't do this, I'm not ready to do this, and I just fought through it, and I ate some food, I put on this comfort sweatshirt, and I came back on here and I said, no, I'm going to break the cycle, and I'm going to stop suffering in a loop. I'm surrendering to the fact that I need to get better, and I need things to get better, and I need to choose better, and this is better, you know, right? And to share this message of this, what I've had to share. But yeah, anyways, so this is gonna be like, it's not gonna be as long as my normal episodes. It's kind of just really something that I was like really meaning to talk about, and I've been wanting to talk about, and been wanting to come back and just kind of get back into normalcy again, and finding beauty in life, and getting out of this dark shadows that I've been living in, a very darkness. But this is the start of light, and this is the start of getting back to happiness, because I was feeling so good and so happy, and it just sucks how easily that can all just change, and how hard I fall. Like, I feel like it takes so much to get to happiness, but it's like something so small can just shove me right back down. But it takes so much to get up, you know, but it's so easy to go down, and I really hate that, you know. And like, I don't know how to get around that, you know. But that's where we're gonna end the episode today. I will see you guys next week, and I'm not sure what I'm talking about next week, but I have something written down. I just I don't know if it'll be that, or if I'll something along, or maybe I'll go more into like what happened or whatever. But gonna end here today with that. I love you guys so much. Thank you for continuing to support me, everything, and through all things, and still be here when I take my little hiatuses and come back, you know. Appreciate you all so much. I love you all so much, and I will see you guys next week. I love you. Bye.